Welcome to Betting Weekly Live. It's Friday, the 6th of September, and I've got a special lineup today. James Eastham, my partner in crime on the European show, and a live show debut for our Senior ATP handicapper, Sean Calvert, who's back from New York. Sean, how's it going?
All right, mate, I think. Thank you. A little bit tired, a bit sort of jaded, but, still got a bit of energy left. It's always a tricky turnaround doing US Open to New York to here. It's a bit, there's a time difference and you're away for a few days and then getting used to the time there and then you're back here and whatever. But, not one to complain. It's, well, I am, but but not, I'm not going to complain about that. It's always a great trip coming to New York. It's one of the tournaments of the year.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. We're going to be talking about US Open semi-finals in the first half of this show. And then after that, we've got loads of soccer content. Me and James will be taking over. James, I'm sure you're very excited. France are in action today.
Yeah.
So that'll whet your appetite, won't it?
Certainly will. Big game. Yeah. I know some people don't like international breaks. I get it. We love the league action week after week, don't we? But there's some big games on this international break. There's some serious action with the Nations League and also big qualifiers for the next World Cup in South America as well. We'll be looking at. So, yeah, some massive matches that we'll be talking about once we finish with the tennis.
Welcome in, everyone. If you've got something to say, then do put it in the comments. We've got loads already. Welcome in Byron, Henry VIII, King Savvy, Duncan Evans. Great to see you. It's a great chance to quiz both James and Sean here. And it's going to be a really exciting show. And also, by the way, do hit that like button. It really helps the show out. And the subscribers. We are 6 subscribers short of 5,000 subscribers. And I can tell you now, there is going to be a prize for the 5,000th subscriber. This is from Nigel Seeley himself, who told me this. It's not going to be a day out. It's not a day out with Sean Calvert. It's going to be a Because We Win T-shirt. So hopefully that 5,000 subscriber live on air. So do hit it. Do hit that. Yes. Time it right as well. You want to time it right. But we're going to start. We've got to start with the US Open because we're at the crunch stage now. We've got 2 massive games on the slate today. We've got Jannik Sinner against Jack Draper, and then the All-American clash later on, Fritz and Tiafoe. Outright market first, and Sinner minus 230 now to win the US Open, hot favourite. Fritz at plus 400, Jack Draper, who's not even dropped a set yet in New York City, plus 800, and Tiafoe at 12 to 1 shots. Sean, it's the old proverbial question: if you had a free $10 bet, who would your money be on the outright market now?
Depends how risky I was feeling at the time. I mean, a $10 bet's not going to get you much on Sinner, is it? Minus 230. But can I see him losing? Not really. It depends how risk averse you are or whatever. But looking at those outright odds there with Bet Rivers, I can't really oppose Sinner. I'm not sure he's going to lose to Draper. I'm not sure he's going to lose to either Fritz or Tiafoe. So the answer to that is Sinner. It's not the most exciting bet, but if that's what you're making me do, then that's probably what I'd do.
There is a show that's out already, Game Better Match, where you go in detail on the Fritz Tiafoe game. That's coming up later on, 7 p.m. Eastern time later. We're going to talk now about Jannik Sinner against Jack Draper, and we'll have a word about, of course, the second game as well. But prices for this game then, Jannik Sinner, minus 625 on the money line. Jack Draper for plus 475. We've got a games line at 35.5. And the spread is a bit as big as minus 6.5 for a semi-final. I mean, Jack Draper. I mean, over here in the UK, it's quite a big story now, this. I've watched his games, and he's looked really, really good. I'm not an expert on tennis, though, Sean. And there's a reason why Jannik Sinner is such a big favourite here. But, I mean, Draper has been playing some very good tennis. Do you give him any shot at all?
Yeah. It's not impossible. I mean, I'm slightly annoyed about this run of Jack Draper's because I backed him and tipped him to win Montreal a few weeks ago, which was the penultimate tournament but one, if you like, before the US Open. He lost in the first round to Jordan Thompson. So I was comfortable about him being able to match these top guys, over the best of 3 sets. Montreal's played over the best of 3, obviously US Open best of 5. I just wasn't convinced about his fitness over the best of 5 sets. And, I'm still a little bit doubtful about that. That's the thing that Jack Draper is yet to prove to everybody, whether the fitness is there. He hasn't, as you said, he hasn't dropped a set, so he hasn't played anything over 3 sets yet this fortnight. the question mark about Jack Draper has always been fitness. Susceptible in the heat, yes, very often. Happened again at the Olympics. It's happened numerous times. Cramping, his physical side of it has always been what's held him back, which is why I took a chance on him in Montreal, because the weather there was like 24, 25 in Celsius. It wasn't hot. Obviously, he lost in the first round, but what can you do about that? Now he's in the semi-finals of the US Open. But he's been playing great. But the other question is, what's he beaten so far to get here?
Yeah.
I mean, Zhang was injured in the first round, probably should have retired straight away, but he tried to get through the match. Zhang ended up retiring. I think it was in the third. De Minaur, who he played a couple of days ago, was also injured quite clearly. Anyone that's seen De Minaur play before and then watched him play that match, you could tell he wasn't moving very well. I presume the hip was still a recurrence of that hip issue that he had at Wimbledon. So I'm writing that off really as an injury performance. Van der Zandschulp had a ton of chances against Draper. He had 10 breakpoint chances, Van der Zandschulp, in that match. Only took one. So Draper rode his luck a little bit there. I'm not saying he's not been playing well, but Mahach was dreadful in a match that myself and Nigel were courtside for a few days ago. Again, Draper played great, but Mahach was terrible. And the other one was Diaz Acosta, who's an out-and-out clay courter. So, he's playing great, but this is a step up. If you look at the stats, actually, that he's produced so far this US Open, they're exactly the same as Sinner's. And I always say this on the show: service points won and return points won totals. It's just a good gauge of how well you're playing. Draper's on 118, and so is Jannik Sinner. You kind of would expect Sinner to be around about that mark. You wouldn't expect Draper to be around that mark, but he's had a few kindly matchups, I say, with the injuries and stuff.
Yeah, Sean, you've kind of answered part of the question I was going to ask you about Draper, coming from a casual tennis fan.
Yeah,
you've mentioned the run that he's had there, which is probably, as you say, being quite kind. Even taking that into account, is this still a leap forward earlier than maybe you thought he was going to make as regards going this deep in a slam, given that I think he hadn't got past the second round until now in a slam? And is it still, despite maybe the fact that the run's been favourable,
I think
an overperformance, would you say, from a sort of
possibly? I mean, I think the fact that he hasn't played 5 sets at all has helped him massively. Yeah. In the De Minaur match, he was injured again, wasn't he? I think he had strapping on his right thigh, I believe it was. And that's always been the issue. It's never been about talent. We know the ability that he's got. His return game's improving all the time. He's actually won 48% of return points this US Open, which is, he's winning half of the return points almost, which is, Djokovic, peak Djokovic, or those sort of levels of returning. But it's always been about the physicality. If he'd played a couple of 4 really long 4s and maybe a 5, I think it would be a different story. But the fact that he's come through with this fortunate run and everything's fortunate in some senses. He's played great and he's dismissed some of these guys like Mahach, a bit of luck in a couple of others. But if he'd played longer matches, that would answer your question, because if he'd come through a couple of 4s and maybe a 5 and he got here and he's as fresh as a daisy or still decent, then you would have to say those doubts are kind of in the past. But
what about the betting then, Sean? I mean, for the actual bets for the game, we've got a spread here, -6.5 on Sinner, over 35.5 games. Would you look to bet anything there, or a side market perhaps that you could recommend? We've got some interesting comments here. Duncan Evans thinks Draper beats Sinner tonight. That's a big call. And Ryan, RJ, welcome. Ryan Gerton himself. I wondered who that was for a minute, but it is the mighty RJ. And he thinks Tiafoe is an upset alert. We're going to talk about that a bit later. But bets for the Sinner game, anything you can perhaps lean here on, Sean?
It feels like it's got a sort of 3-1 to Sinner kind of vibe about it to me. I'll just put another stat in. I've checked what Draper's done against the current top 10 in the world in the last 12 months. 29% win rate, service points won and return points won, total of 99. Sinner, 78% win rate and a total of 105. So, the jury's still out at the minute about Draper over 5 sets against an elite player. I feel like he's certainly good enough to win a set. I'm just not sure whether he's going to win 2 or 3. First set to Draper could be interesting. A lot will depend on the nerves as well. He said he wasn't nervous in the quarterfinals against De Minaur. Maybe semi-finals a bit different, I think. We'll see about that. But I would probably go Sinner plus 3-1 to win 3-1 at plus 230 with Bet Rivers. That kind of feels like the right bet for me in this one.
Bet Rivers do have some notable sizable future bets on Jannik Sinner. $20,000 on him at minus 244, 15,000 on him at plus 115. So quite a liability for the book here. So you're thinking 3-1 perhaps to Sinner. Let's move on to the second semi-final. A massive one, huge. I mean, this is huge for US tennis. Taylor Fritz against Frances Tiafoe. I've seen a lot of people sort of suggesting that Tiafoe's a good dog here, can maybe bring a bit of a shock out. But I watched the show you did with Nigel, and you can check that out on the Game Bet Match on your podcast or on the YouTube. And the stats are not that great for Tiafoe. I mean, has anything changed your mind about this game in the last couple of days, Sean? Let's remind us of the interesting side prop that you like for this match as well.
Yeah, I took the double faults option because a couple of reasons, really. The double faults have been way more than the normal this US Open. Average is 0.35 per game. This US Open versus a tour average of 0.25. That's maybe to do with the balls. The players are complaining about them. Whatever the reason, there's been way more double faults than usual this tournament. Tiafoe, the line is 8.5, isn't it? Double faults.
Minus 112, yeah, for over 8.5.
Over 8.5. Tiafoe's gone over 8.5 in every match apart from the one which was a retirement against Shevchenko. Fritz has gone over 8.5 in 3 of his 5 matches, barring the 3-0 wins over Commissana and Berrettini. And there's been, as I said, there's been way more double faults this tournament. There's likely to be a lot of nerves in this match. You know, whoever wins this is going to be the first American in the US Open final since, I think, it was Andy Roddick, wasn't it? 2006. So, you know, Tiafoe's already said it's the biggest match of our lives. This is about who handles the nerves better. I think Tiafoe's chances lie with Fritz being a bit nervy because it has been a dominant matchup for Taylor Fritz. But this is a US Open semi-final. You know, it's not the second round in Tokyo or whatever. So that, I think, for me, Tiafoe's chances lie in Fritz being a little bit below par because the matchup is, it's the very, very solid Fritz against the more up and down Tiafoe. I think he's improved his return game since he's been working with David Witt, which has been like a month or two now. So if that continues on the upsurge, maybe he'll return the Fritz serve better than he has in the past. That's a possibility. I still think it's a good matchup for Taylor Fritz. Tiafoe, you know, he's got to bring that energy. It's all about the energy for him. If he's up for it and he's pumped up and the crowd are pumped, then he might be able to ride the wave. But I mean, Fritz is the more likely winner for me.
Unfortunately, the subscriber competition isn't going very well. We've actually lost a subscriber whilst on air. Maybe people trying to time and resubscribe and get the prize.
Is that what they're trying to do?
Maybe, yes. I don't know, Sean, or maybe the prize needs to be increased.
2 t-shirts. I don't know.
But do hit that subscribe button if you're not already. I would very much appreciate it. I was going to ask you a question. I got sidetracked by that, but I've completely forgotten now. Oh yeah, that's it. Give us a correct score prediction for sets then for this game before we leave you, Sean.
Correct score again, probably 3-1 to Fritz. I can't see it being easy, but I feel like he'll get it done. Yeah, certainly. It depends on the nerves. You know, then the first set in particular could be an incredibly nervy affair. You know, these guys, this is such a massive game for these guys. If Tiafoe gets off to a good start, Fritz is a bit nervy. You know, then that as I said, that's the big chance for Tiafoe. But the sensible option would be for me 3-1 to Fritz.
There's actually a $2,000 future bet on Tiafoe at 12-1. So that would go down very nicely for that particular bet, or if he could get the US Open in the bag. Who do you think the crowd will be supporting? Because they're both American.
Yeah,
is there going to be one favourite over the other?
Nigel seems to think that Tiafoe will be the favourite in terms of the crowd. I'm not so sure. I think Tiafoe's a bigger personality, isn't he? Fritz is a bit. He's not got that same energetic sort of bustling style that Tiafoe has, you know, bringing the energy, bringing the heat, whipping the crowd. That's not really Taylor Fritz's personality. It's more Tiafoe. So on that basis, the connection with the crowd, you probably would slightly favour Tiafoe.
Juice, thank you very much for subscribing. He says, don't rule out Draper. He hasn't lost a set. 3-0 Draper, by the way, 20-1, incidentally, for those who fancy to keep that trend going. That would take some doing, though, to be fair to Jack Draper. But Sean, it's been brilliant to have you on. Live
Pleasure.
show debut. Hopefully have you on again in the future at some point. And we're going to take a little mini break now, about 10-second break while we do the graphics turnaround. And me and James are going to take over with the soccer. But good luck with your bets for the weekend, Sean. And enjoy the US Open. It was brilliant to have you. Thanks.
Thanks, mate.
We are back. Steve Wyss James Eastham. I've sorted the graphics out there. Wow, US Open. I've been watching the tennis this week, James. Yeah. We had Rory Giovanni on Monday, and he got me hooked on a couple of games, the Swiatek handicap. And that just shows you. I mean, I don't mind my tennis, but the US Open kind of just brings it out in me. I want to watch all these big games. Is that how you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's down to TV, isn't it, as well? If you think back, I remember back in the day, they used to show this is over in the UK talking, they used to show the men's final on free to view TV over in the UK. So a lot of it for casual fans will depend on that sort of thing, won't it? But obviously the slams from a domestic point of view in the UK, if there's a Brit doing well, they always make the headlines, don't they? We saw it with Raducanu a few years ago in the States, and it's obviously the same with Draper doing well this time.
Right, well, we're going to be talking about the soccer now. We've got Nations League and we've got South American World Cup qualifiers to talk about. Let's start with the Nations League. And I've seen some comments that Kazakhstan are annoying people in running. They're actually playing Norway right now. 0-0 after an hour. It looks like Norway have been dominating on the stats. Let's see if they can get a goal or not. Here's some feature games today in the Nations League. Wales are in action against Turkey. France against Italy and Belgium against Israel. Well, only one place to start with you on the show, Mr. Eastham, and that is France against Italy. France minus 177 on the money line. The tie plus 295 and Italy plus 510. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just think France are a lot better team, really, than Italy. I know it's only Nations League, but minus 177, I wouldn't have a problem personally going on the money line with France. But what angles have you got for us in this game? Yeah,
I would agree with that. I saw the comment from Byron. Can France win the game? Yes, Byron. I think they can. A bit short, maybe, even for the handicap, in the sense that we've just seen France at the Euros, haven't we? And they weren't set up to win games by big margins. So if that minus 177 on France to win the game is too short for you, and you're thinking about backing them on the Asian handicap, for me, it doesn't have a lot of appeal because Didier Deschamps is still the manager. Just for people who may be catching up on France since the Euros, he's still in charge, and he'll probably, almost certainly be in charge until the next World Cup now, will Deschamps. So I don't see a change of style. I'm with you, Steve. I think they should win it. But for me, the best angles on this game are the shots on target market. This is one of my favourite markets. And this is where team news on France tonight, I think, could be absolutely crucial. So there's 3 players I've picked out in the shots on target market for France who I think are worth looking at. The first is Bradley Barcola, who has started the season in fantastic form for PSG, playing in League One. What's interesting about Barcola, who is a winger, he's added goals to his game. We've seen that in League One. I think he's got 4 goals in 3 games so far. He's playing crucially, or maybe crucially, at the Parc des Princes tonight. The game isn't being held at the National Stadium, which is the Stade de France. It's being held at PSG Stadium, which is Parc des Princes. That's where Barcola plays. He's minus 109 just to have a shot on target. I think given how Barcola's been playing this season, that is a great price because he's added that ability to cut in field and work the goalkeeper to his game. So he's my number 1 pick on the shot on targets market. My second would be Fofana in midfield. He's plus 265. We think he might start tonight because Tchouaméni and Camavinga are out injured, and his midfield partner is likely to be N'Golo Kante. We know he doesn't get forward really and have shots on goal. So Fofana's worth a look at plus 265. And the third one would be Theo Hernandez at left back, who's plus 360 to have a shot on target. I think that's a really big price given how he plays for France. He tends to get forward really well from the left back position. So all of those are worth looking at. But I think Barcola, for those who are looking for a good bet at around even money, minus 109 to have just a shot on target tonight on the Bet Rivers market, I think that's a great shout because we think he's going to start. And as I say, he's a player who's in form in terms of goals. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see him having shots on target in this game.
Yeah, and you do have an excellent record with these shots on target bets that you've advised on the show over the last couple of years. So, you would be well advised to take a listen to Mr. Eastham here. Some questions coming in about France money line under 3.5. I was actually thinking the other way, because the way Italy play now under Spalletti, they're a bit more open. I mean, I was alarmed how Switzerland, the last time they were seen, Switzerland absolutely outplayed them off the park in the Euros. I mean, that's Switzerland. No offense. France, if they want it, I think they could rack up the score here. But will they want to rack up the score? That's a really tough question. And we need 5 more subscribers, by the way. 5 more subscribers during the show. And if we hit it during it, get that T-shirt. And we've got a new version of a T-shirt as well. I've got the defunct one right now. We've got some new merch from Bet Rivers, which is coming out. So well worth your while. But yeah, would you go over France and I mean, I was thinking actually over 2.5, not 3.5. But let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why people would want to go unders if they've watched France at the Euros. The only thing I'd say to that is we did see a different France in qualifying for the Euros. They actually racked up a lot of goals, didn't they? They had that massive win against Gibraltar, but they just played with a lot more freedom in the qualifiers than they did when they got to the finals of the Euros. So it doesn't necessarily follow that they'll play the same, slightly defensive way that we've just seen in Germany. It's actually hard to say, I think, what type of France will turn up here. That's why, for me, I was quite keen to stay away from the main markets on this and really look at those individual players, because I do think there is some value in those shots picks.
Yeah, Byron says there that Italy are more open, but thinks that he can't afford to be as open now as he gets used to the role. I think that's a good watching brief actually for this game. Norway are still 0-0 with Kazakhstan live, by the way, -140, -134 for Norway on the money line. Don't even get me started on this national team. Why it doesn't perform? Look at that 11 for Norway today. It should be absolutely battering Kazakhstan, shouldn't it? They're not a team you can trust in international soccer, even though it looks like they should go on to win from the stats that we're seeing in running. Second game we're going to talk about in Europe is the Belgium game against Israel. Now, I don't know about you, James. When I saw this fixture, I was just shocked that Israel were in League A for the Nations League. And I mean, fair play to them, but really, no disrespect to Israel, Belgium should be a full class better than them. There's been a lot of talk about the squad selection that Belgium have had for this Nations League. Lukaku is ruled out by himself, by all admissions, but we got the Courtois incident with Tedesco. It feels like they're blooding a few younger players in with some of the experienced ones. This should be an easy win, though, surely, for Belgium.
Should be an easy win, Steve. Yeah, I suppose the first thing to stay here for viewers is it's a neutral venue game. It's taking place in Hungary, and it's also taking place behind closed doors, so that will be worked into the price. But actually, I personally don't think that makes too much difference, in the sense that if you see this as a training match between Belgium and Israel behind closed doors with something running on it, with something counting on it, you'd still expect Belgium to win, wouldn't you? They're a much better team than Israel. There's not that much evidence recently from Israel against big teams, so it's hard to say how they will fare. But they've had a couple of heavy defeats this year against teams who are not even as good as Belgium. I think they lost 3-0 to Hungary. They lost 4-1 to Iceland. I don't see a reason why Israel will cause Belgium too many problems here. So I was very strong on Belgium. I think they'll win. Obviously, the price is really short. So then it's a case of, well, how do you make them pay if you fancy Belgium? My pick on this game, or my lean on this game, it would be to do two things. Number one would be to take Belgium on the 3-way spread with a 1-0 deficit. So essentially, Belgium are starting the game 1-0 down, and you need them to win it. So you need them to win the game by two goals. That's available at, I think, -157. And I'd combine that with Lois Openda to score. I think we're both fans of Lois Openda, Steve, aren't we, as players? He was great at Lens, and he's doing well at Leipzig, and he started the season with a couple of goals at Leipzig. If Lukaku isn't playing, and he's not, then you'd assume Lois Openda might well start tonight. And what an opportunity for him, who probably should have got more opportunities at the
He's
Euros.
better than Lukaku anyway for me now. No matter what. I mean, Lukaku, I think he's getting on a bit. Openda's the future for Belgium. I think it's a great time for him to shine.
I think so. And, against not the best opposition, if he does start, you think, what a great chance to score. So for me, the way to play this game, it would be to combine Belgium 0-1 start on the 3-way spread with Openda to score any time, and that will pay out at odds against.
Belgium on the handicap for me, -1.75 Asian, straight on the nose, 2-0, and it would win. But I think they rack up a few more here. potentially 3 or 4. They're the sort of nation who do like to, like I say, rack up that score against these types of teams. And, neutral venue behind closed doors, I don't think that makes a big difference for Nations League, if I'm being brutally honest with you. I don't think there wasn't another Nations League game you wanted to talk about, was there? We're going straight to South America, I think, now, James. This is actually a rare instance now where we might have a disagreement. Just before that, we've got a comment here from the let's go through some comments, actually. Barcola makes more sense as Byron Muriel. None of the players who went deep at the European Championship have looked fit at the start of the season. We've seen injuries and lack of form last night. Yeah, that's a very good point. Who had the 0-0 for Spain last night? And not many people would have thought that, would they? There was red cards around as well, players doing some slack things. I'm not sure some of the players in Europe are really that focused on this particular window. They're thinking more about perhaps just getting back to fitness and their club form and things like that. But more serious is World Cup qualifying. I mean, this is for the 2026 World Cup in America and Mexico. We've got Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Ecuador, and Peru against Colombia. Now, Uruguay, for me, are an automatic over team because of the manager. It's Marcelo Bielsa. I love talking about Uruguay because I get to talk about Bielsa. And he's one, obviously, former Leeds and Marseille manager. I do have a soft spot, but they only play one way. Bielsa only plays one way, and it tends to be quite open. So I would normally go automatic overs for Uruguay. However, my best bet for the game, my best bet for the whole show, is actually Uruguay on the Asian handicap -1 for this game at -122 with Bet Rivers. So if they win the game, you are not going to lose a penny.
Yeah.
The reason for that is you're going to make an interesting point about unders here for this game.
We are
Paraguay, right?
Paraguay. Yeah, we are going to disagree here, Steve. I take the point on Uruguay Bielsa. We all know that they're going to go for it. My view on this game, having looked at it, is two things. First of all, Uruguay are below strength. So we know they've got players out. I think Darwin Núñez is out. Bentancur's out. Some of their good backup players who may have come into the team are out injured as well. So it's an under-strength Uruguay. And we know what we're going to get from Paraguay. They're going to try and make it a 0-0 draw. If you look through their qualifiers so far, they've been so amazingly low scoring. I think all 6 of Paraguay's World Cup qualifiers so far have had either no goals or 1 goal. So they're going to go there and try and make it a 0-0 draw. Now, ordinarily, would they do that against Uruguay at full strength? Well, probably not. But can they do it against a Uruguay which is under strength? Well, I think they've got a better chance of doing it. So it's a clash of styles. We've got maybe only one team on the pitch here who's going to actually try to win the game. I just feel that the team news for Uruguay means I'm going to favour Paraguay here, and they might get the job done. Now, we might see 2 goals. That wouldn't massively surprise me, but I think Paraguay's chances of keeping it under 3 goals are pretty good here because of the fact they've got a track record of doing that so far in the qualifiers, and they're doing it against an under-strength Uruguay side here. So I was looking at the unders all the way here. I think under 2.5 goals is -127. Wouldn't talk anybody out of that. Under 2.25 is +106. So if you're looking for an odds against pick on the goals market, under 2.25 at +106 would be my pick. And that way you're going to make something as long as there are 2 goals or fewer. So that's my view on the game. I feel that the team news on Uruguay and the way Paraguay play are the 2 big factors here.
Yeah, I think Paraguay will come here and park the bus. But in the Copa America, they were really open, actually. They conceded a lot of goals. So let's see which version of them turns up. You like the unders. I like Uruguay -1 on the Asian. 2-0 correct score, by the way. We'd both win with that. Is at +510. Maybe you could do worse than that. The Brazil game, Brazil-Ecuador, this is where we are going to be in alignment, James. I'm going to let you take first dibs on this one. I always say, any show I've done the last year or so, it's the worst version of Brazil I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. You look back over the years, they've always been criticised when they don't win a World Cup, haven't they? But they've generally been pretty good even when they've not been at that level. So yeah, it possibly is. I was really surprised at the prices here. Brazil -265 to win. The ties +375, Ecuador +810. If you look at purely the form of these two sides, there's no reason, I don't think, for Brazil to be that short. The current table in South America in World Cup qualifying, Ecuador are above Brazil after 6 matches. Now, there's only 1 point in it, but they're above them. So there's no reason, I think, why Ecuador should feel intimidated here. They've only lost one of their 6 qualifying games so far. That was away to Argentina. They only lost it 1-0. So why would you be overly concerned if you're Ecuador? Yes, it's going to be a tough game, of course, but you'd fancy your chances, wouldn't you? You know, they've drawn away to Venezuela, they've won away in Bolivia, they've won at home to Uruguay. If you look through the roster list, we know that Ecuador now have got good players, you know, don't we, playing in the Premier League and elsewhere. So I think they've got a really good chance of making a tough game of this, and I think Ecuador on the Asian handicap would be the smart pick. They're plus 1.25 goal start. That's a plus 1.25 goal start at minus 109. I think that's a great pick. They just need to avoid defeat by a couple of goals, and that will pay out for you. I think their form in the qualifiers so far would suggest that they can either get something here or they can limit Brazil to a 1-goal victory. So yeah, for me, Ecuador on the Asian handicap all the way on this game.
I agree with you. Plus 1.25 on the Asian handicap, Ecuador. This will cover for a 1-goal defeat, which could happen here. Brazil aren't bothered how many they win by here. They need the points. But a draw wouldn't actually be terrible for them. Ecuador are an improving nation, did well at the Copa America, and they've got a threat. I mean, I think you had a lean for Ecuador just to score a goal here at minus 109 even. That could be worth... there's no reason why they can't get a goal against this. I mean, Venezuela scored here. But I think this could be a draw or a 1-goal Brazil win myself. So we're very much in alignment on this game. Just one further pick I want to add. In South America, Colombia, straight on the money line here at minus 125 away to Peru. Peru are awful. They're dire. They have no goal threat whatsoever. Just offer nothing. I think Colombia win to 0. They've won here 3-0 both the last 2 visits. There's a big golfing class. I think Colombia should have won Copa America. They were the better team in the tournament, but they got done by Argentina in extra time in the final. So they're a very good nation. Peru, they don't float my boat, James. Just straight on the money line here. Might be a poor game, 0-1, 0-2, but I would definitely do that. We're really close to reach 5,000 subscribers. Just 2 away. If you've been timing it, do hit that button now, and we can get you that free T-shirt. The 5,000 subscriber. Byron agrees with me. There was a question about the Wales both to score. Yes, I do think Wales probably can get on the scoreboard tonight against Turkey. Turkey, quite an open team. Shakespeare's back. Shakespeare, brilliant to see you on the show. Again, there's his picks for today. New York Yankees against the Chicago Cubs. Raymond is not happy about Norway. I'm telling you that you cannot trust this Norway team. I don't even want to talk about Norway. They absolutely do my head in. Before we go, just I want to mention some notable winners yesterday on the sportsbook. It was a big match in the NFL last night. It was the Chiefs against my Ravens. You see the helmet behind me. I was trying to hide that helmet today a bit because we lost against the Chiefs. But over $30,000 was staked on the Chiefs, either pre-game or live. I think even more, actually. So, and over 46 as well. Someone had $11,000 on that. There were 47 points scored, so won by half a point. Nice. But that's it. That'll do for this show. Many thanks to Sean Calvert. Many thanks to James Eastham. Thanks to everyone who joined live or on demand. James, best bet of the day before we go. If you had to have one bet today, what would it be?
One bet today would be Bradley Barcola over 0.5 shots on target for France against Italy, minus 109.
Yeah, my bet of the day is Uruguay on the -1 Asian handicap against Paraguay, but also I do love the Ecuador. We both love Ecuador on the handicap against Brazil. All right, have a great weekend then, James. Have a great weekend,
you, Steve.
Everyone.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, stay safe. Remember to gamble responsibly, and we'll see you next week on Betting Weekly Live. Take care.